Notice how God always gives man everything that man needs. He's given man decency and he's given man proper order. He has provided a covering for man in every area of his life. And when we avoid, when we ignore the covering, the plan that God has divinely placed over us, we incur the wrath of God. And many times we have to face the consequences of our disobedience. Well, let me give you a few examples. Let's look at a parent again. A parent is charged by God to train up a child in the way he should go, because God knows it's going to pay off as he gets older. Scripture says when he gets old, he won't depart from it. And so God has given that child an authority figure. The parent is God's ordained covering for their child. Let's look at husbands. A husband is the covering for his wife and for his family. And when his headship is disregarded, you also disregard God's plan in the home. The government, which of course you may want to debate me on, which you feel may be corrupt and may not be kosher and may not be what it ought to be, but the principle of government is God ordained. It's not the government that's wrong, it's the folk working in the government sometimes that's wrong. It's the people that get greedy and the people that do underhanded stuff. But the government itself is right, because Romans chapter 13 says that government is the minister of God to thee for good. So if government is the minister of God, it can't be wrong. Oh Lord, y'all looking at me now. Government, the Bible lets us know its powers are ordained of God. Ignore it and you resist the power of God. Well, what about the pastor? The pastor is the shepherd. He's the spiritual leader of the flock. He stands in the gap for you. And according to Hebrews 13 and 17, it says to obey them that have rule over you, for they watch for your soul. So to resist or disregard the pastor is to resist or disregard God, because you stand in his stead. So God has set everything in its proper order. He has set in order the plan and the purpose for his creation. He has set in order the directives for our lives. And all you and I have to do is follow his instructions. The Genesis account. I told y'all wasn't going to dance. So I already sent out the SOS. The Genesis account starts off very beautiful. But somewhere down the road, it makes a turn for the worst. It makes an ugly turn and gets worse. As often as we say, it's not how you start, but it's how you finish. A whole lot of people start out good, and thank God for starting out good, but you got to keep it up. Adam started out good, but the story of the history of humanity and the history of the world and the history of the Bible said that we started out good, but we took an ugly turn. During the patriarchal age before the flood, men had an unusual lifespan of 900 years. I don't have the time to discuss all of that now, but I noticed in the scripture how men produced children at the age of 800 years old. But as time went on, it began to decline. And children were born to younger men. And not only were children born to younger men, but also they began to die at a much earlier age. It somewhat sounds like today, doesn't it? Today we've got children producing children. We've got young folks having kids, and most of them are unmarried and unemployed. And they are many times now are even dying faster than their parents. It says to me that patting folks on the back is out. You need to tell folks the truth. It tells me it's time now to sound the alarm and let folks know what God expects and what you will not tolerate in your house. It's time now to stop ignoring our children that are losing their lives because they're involved in gangs, because they're doing drugs, because they're having sex out of wedlock. It tells us now it's time to address these issues and let them know that the alarm has sounded and certain things we just not gonna put up with. The best children now are the ones who have parents who get into them, who let them know you're not going to say this, you're not going to do this, you're going to come home when I tell you to come home, you're going to turn that TV off when I tell you to turn it off. I know y'all don't like this. And of course the children are going to resist it because they want to have fun. But now we need to push education. We need to push morality. We need to push civility. We need to push having good manners. We need to let our children know to respect people. Because your world is changing. You're not going to be able to compete in a global economy with a high school or less. You're going to have to get the education now to compete in a global economy. You're going to have to know how to articulate and how to express yourself. And stop talking, you know. You have to know how to say more than uh-huh and yeah. I'm about to get in trouble now. We're going to have to tell our children that I don't care if the basketball players and the rock stars are tattooed. Don't put all that junk on your body. I saw a guy the other day, a basketball player. He had tattoos all the way from his wrist to his shoulder, on both of his arms, all on his neck. Sickening. And your children think that's a role model. That's a nut that would do something like that. Oh, I gotta let you know that no matter how bad this world is, no matter how bad and wicked this society is, God always has somebody that's still living saved in the midst of calamity and confusion. Don't you ever think for a moment that everybody is not living saved. Don't you ever think for a moment that everybody is perpetrating. Because God does have some people that love the Lord with all of their heart. God's got some people that are going to hold on anyhow. And you can't tell me that in the earth at this time, I don't know how many hundreds of thousands of people were alive. I don't know how many millions were on the face of the earth. Somebody said it could have easily been about 3 or 4 million people on the face of the earth, even during Noah's generation. But regardless to how many people it was, everybody else was living ungodly lives. Everybody else was living wicked lives. But Noah found grace in the eyes of the Lord.